honest to God, I thought I was retired from boxing on YouTube. But, and let me tell you guys something. Had this performance by Naoya Inoue been any less emphatic than it was, I more than likely wouldn't have come back. But that performance was so awe-inspiringly amazing that I really just have to come back and say what I gotta say on this. I'm just gonna go over the fight round by round. Round 1, within the first 30 seconds to a minute, I knew the fight was over because I started to see Inoue use his jab and actually fight at range and get better extension on his shots from Fulton from the early outset. The places where I knew Fulton wouldn't really be able to compete with Inoue just on both physical attributes and technique, power, things of that nature, were mid-range and for the most part on the inside. But I figured at max extension, his reach, about a 3-4 inch reach advantage, would be able to help him out. And would be able to occupy Inoue at long distance for a little bit and keep him thinking anyways. That didn't even happen. As soon as I saw Inoue starting to out-jab him, working his body and controlling Fulton from the outside from early on in the fight, that is effectively where I knew, yeah, this fight's over. I might as well go downstairs and just water the plants. I mean, what can I say? So first round, Inoue takes. Second round, Inoue takes. Both of those rounds, Inoue largely just outboxed him. He was able to momentarily buzz Fulton with shots around the guard. It kind of looked like a typical Beterbiev fight where he's just even punches on the guard from Inoue. Even though Fulton was able to block quite a few of the shots upstairs, those shots on the guard were still keeping him hesitant and still keeping him honest. And he was never able to set his feet and get the punches off that he wanted. And one thing about Fulton is he cannot really punch on the move. He can punch from the outside, but he needs to constantly reset, set again, reset, set again in order to get his punches off. He can only punch with his feet set, and even when he does so, his punches aren't particularly powerful because he doesn't turn his punches over. So therefore, Inoue just had an easy time being able to out-jab Fulton from long distance. If Fulton tried to use his jab at long distance, which he did oftentimes, he would render himself off balance because of what I said. Not only are the two in a different league in terms of skill and technique, the two are also in a different league athletically. Fulton has very good fast twitch reflexes. He's somebody who can get his punches off very quickly from, the outside. He's got good reflexes, but Inoue has better reflexes, and not only that, but he's far more fluid. Fulton, like I said, not only can he not really punch on the move, he's really just not... Look, in his performance against Figueroa, a lot of people before the fight, one of the narratives I heard about that fight where he fought Figueroa and had a very tough time with him, was that Stephen Fulton was effectively fighting Figueroa's fight deliberately to entertain the fans, which is not at all the case. If you watch the Figueroa versus Mark Magsayo fight, Magsayo had an easier time being able to control distance from the outside than Fulton, not because he's better than Fulton necessarily, but which he's not, but because he was using his stance was more narrow and his feet are quicker and he's a better athlete. Fulton really doesn't have that ability to be quick on his feet, light on his feet, bounce around. His stance is way too wide, and he's not quick enough or fluid enough like an Usyk or even a Loma at times to be able to make that work and retain his fluidity and be a perpetual mover. So, furthermore, Inoue just used his jab at long distance. Fulton effectively had to rely on occasionally beating Inoue to the punch, and sometimes Inoue keeping his head center line. But that was about it. Round 3 was a competitive round, but Inoue took it, in my view. Just more decisive, landed the better shots. Fulton was able to get in a few decent hooks here and there. Was able to land a straight right hand from every now and then. Was able to even smother Inoue at times, but Inoue just more decisive. Was still able to buzz him a bit with body shots around the guard. Round 5, dominant round for Inoue. Round 6, closer round. Inoue won the round. Round 7, this was a close round. Round 6, I would say, was a pretty clear round for Inoue, but round 7 was actually quite a close round. In my view, the only round that I really considered giving to Fulton, but I still gave the round to Inoue. There was a moment in the 7th round where Fulton was able to land a double right hand and momentarily get Inoue's attention. It forced him to clinch and reset, he wasn't exactly coming back with anything. So you could tell that the shot definitely caught Inoue off guard and was able to get his attention. But his moments were just too few and far between. They were too sporadic and episodic. Inoue's work was still more consistent. He was still out jabbing him. He was still able to hurt him, back him to the ropes. And then round 8, more of the same. Fulton was doing a pretty good job of keeping his hands up, at least, even though he wasn't mounting much offense. He was at least able to take the sting off of Inoue's punches and wasn't getting too badly rocked by too many of his previous shots. It was more of an attritional thing with him starting to welter a little bit. But in this instance, he attempted a pole counter, dropped his lead hand, and got clipped with the straight right hand. And then what looked like his glove touched the canvas, it didn't. Inoue came straight back, running in with a left hook, put him straight on the canvas. It was kind of reminiscent to Charlo's knockdown against Harrison. Or no, it was Charlo's knockdown against, I think, John Jackson. Very reminiscent of that, where he catches him with a straight right hand on the way in, and then finishes him off with the left hook as he's falling back. Then, Fulton gets up, very reluctantly. I didn't think he would. He was flat on his back. He tried to get up, and then he ended up just getting finished off in the corner. Completely out of his depth. Inoue, probably the most dominant fighter I've ever seen in my lifetime. Probably the most dominant fighter over his opposition than Floyd was. Probably the most dominant fighter over his opposition since Roy Jones. Floyd he fought better opposition than Inoue, and I would say is the greater fighter and the more skilled fighter. But the way Inoue has just disposed of world-class competition for the last 9 years is almost unprecedented. Adrian Hernandez, 6th round knockout, was shutting him out on the cards. Ryoichi Taguchi had a pretty tough fight with him on the come-up. 2nd round knockout over Omar Narvaez. Dominant, destructive 8th round knockout over Kohei Kono. 1st round knockout over Jamie McDonnell. 1st round knockout over Juan Carlos Payano. 2nd round knockout over Manny Rodriguez. Tough decision against Donaire, which he still wins 8 or 9 rounds of. Moves up to never mind. Fights Donaire in a rematch, knocks him out in the 2nd round. Before that, he fought Jason Maloney, shut him out, completely outboxed him, knocked him out in the 7th or 8th round. Fights Paul Butler, not really a world-class fighter, shuts him out, whatever. Moves up to 122, and in his first fight against the unified champion, who was he the ring champion of the division? I'm not entirely too sure, but he was by consensus the number 1 ranked fighter in the division, especially seeing as his possible potential rival MJ Akhmadaliev had just lost in an upset to Marlon Tapales. The clear number 1, pretty much unanimous consensus number 1 fighter at the 122-pound division. Inoue completely outboxes, virtually no moment of competitiveness in the fight, and knocks him the fuck out in the 8th round. These fights Inoue are not even competitive. They're not even competitive, man. And, am I necessarily saying that he's never going to have a competitive fight again, since the first Donaire fight? No, I do think there are some tough opponents out there for him. I don't really feel like there's that much competition stylistically for him at 122 pounds. But at 126 pounds, I do think Brandon Figueroa could be a tough fight because of how much he could impose himself on the inside, along with his chin. I do think he could be very problematic for Inoue. But apart from that, 122, 126, and even some of the guys at 130 are going to have a very, very tough time competing with Inoue. He's just an unbelievable blend of polished skill set, offense and defense, supreme athleticism, almost unprecedented power for his division. He's doing things that you wouldn't have even expected him to do. Like, even from early in his career. I feel like from about 2014 onwards, he should have probably been considered a top 5 fighter in the sport. But, god damn, he just comes back 9 years later, 30 years old, at the peak of his powers, and he's just blitzkrieging champions at 122 pounds. And you can't really expect anything different to happen when he fights Tapales and whoever else, maybe Luis Neri. You can't really expect much different. He's elite. He's the best fighter in the sport in the sport at the time. There was virtually no moment of competitiveness in this fight for Fulton. The best moment for Fulton in the fight was a double right hand, which he did not build off of whatsoever, and Inoue still managed to win the round. It was a one-sided fucking molly-whopping. And there's not really too much you can say at this point. He's going straight into the Hall of Fame, and I really don't care what happens in Crawford versus Spence. He's the #1 fighter in the sport.